And welcome back to Nasrec. It is, of course, day 5 and the final day of the ANC's 55th National Conference. And, of course, the top 7 leadership has now been chosen. And it is time for us to find out today at midday who will make up the NEC of the ANC. And I'm joined now by Professor Lesiba Teffo just to look at some of the developments and, of course, what we can anticipate going forward from the African National Congress. So, good morning, Prof. Yesterday, of course, a very eventful day. In the main, I suppose this is what everyone wanted to see, the top leadership of the ANC that would emerge from this conference.
Yes, indeed. Good morning to you and the listeners. As we are tapering to a close, I would say I'm happy we are, and then I'm also happy that things went the way they did. I was a bit anxious like many others, and there was some evidence that even the organizer and the top leadership was anxious, and kudos to all of them, those who have managed to pull it up to this far. Yes, done and dusted, the top 7 elected. The only little concern I have, there certainly are the people who can work very closely with Ramaphosa. I think I just trust and hope they don't get infiltrated to a point where, rather than pull together, they start to pull in different direction. Because some might be said to have not necessarily have embraced him along the highway, but only made a U-turn out of personal expediency. I just hope and trust that would go that way. But I also have some reservations when it comes to the ability of Razzmatazz to be the SG. I think he's a good organizer. I think he could make a good spokesperson. But for him to be in that office and together with Madame Nomvula Mkonyane, I think they are fairly strong characters. Will they be able to work together at one level given how powerful that position is? I don't know. Maybe Maruping might be the one who becomes the steady hand that balances things. But I would say, in fact, let me state it right away, that he will have to cut down on and be circumspect with the choice of words. And he mustn't sound too strong, authoritative, and with a big stick, because already he's setting himself up for his detractors to say to him, please bring it on. I listened to him speak and I said, oh, please tone down. You don't walk in like a principal of a primary school and say, guys, I'm in charge. Don't do that. Don't just do that. You know there are missiles out there. There are landmines. You are traversing a very delicate space in a very disorganized, divided, and fractured organization. Indeed, a declining organization. Either you are going to expedite its demise, or you are going to halt its demise, or you are going to re-energize it.
So, which of those do you think the Fikile Mbalula that we know today is likely to affect?
If he avails for himself for support, guidance, and nurturing, he can. But if he would want to proceed on the disposition attitude that he projected yesterday, yeah, he's inviting his detractors, and they might be already sharpening their knives. He's a good organizer. That's the position I would have given him. He's a good also, and he can speak. But you see that he must tone down on his language, and he must tone down on other things. But he made a public. I don't want to mention other things because he himself said tweeting at midnight and tweeting from which position, from which venue or spot. You see, I'm sure. Yes, and it's no longer Bugs, by the way. It's no longer Razzmatazz. That's an executive position. That is the engine of the organization.
So if we look at what Fikile Mbalula came out to say yesterday, for me, it was perfectly in line with what others had said earlier on in the day before he came out. Spoke to Zizi Kodwa, spoke to Oscar Mabuyane, for example, and it seemed as though discussions had already been had about the line of discipline that needs to be followed. And it would seem as though that was in keeping with these discussions. So looking at who held this position previously under Nelson Mandela's 2 terms, it was Cyril Ramaphosa, who was Secretary General. Then you had Thabo Mbeki's 2 terms. He had Kgalema Motlanthe as his SG. Jacob Zuma, he had for his 2 terms Gwede Mantashe. And then, of course, Cyril Ramaphosa in his first term had Ace Magashule, who didn't finish his term, and now, of course, Fikile Mbalula. So if you look at what's been happening in that office, at least over the last 2 terms, for example, there's a lot that needs to be done. Obviously, Fikile Mbalula getting into an office that wasn't fully staffed for the last while past the passing of the late Jesse Duarte as well.
Not fully staffed, but not lacking in warm bodies to assist in doing that. For me, it's not so much about the warm body, but the caliber of the people in there. You heard Ramaphosa as a single individual, but with some support. He did well. Motlanthe did well. But the circumstances obviously were different. The organization is fractured and divided. So you go in there, or even distrusting, even your junior members of staff who could be used against you. Some of people would remember how Nixon was brought down, the role played by Etlina in the office. So in a fractured organization like the ANC, they can still pull it together, and I wish they do. But I'm merely saying, work as a collective, work as a team, being conscious of the strong pushback that will be there. But set up a mechanism to try to pull everything together, to pull in the same direction, but maybe I'm over optimistic.
Who knows? And it all, of course, also depends on what ultimately eventuates from the election of the additional members in the NEC. So let's talk about that, because this is also going to be pivotal to how that discipline that is hopefully envisaged will be imparted or, brought to bear in the ANC. The last time out, because of trying to forge unity, there was a very mixed bag in your NEC, and many of the ANC, NEC members themselves, other members of the party have come out to speak about how ineffective that outgoing NEC was. So this time around, it is very clear that the Ramaphosa camp is hoping for many more people that would be aligned to them.
I would hope that is the case, but it's also another unfortunate bifurcation or description, because we talk about the ANC as if it has an opposition that it must be conscious of all the time, whereas we are talking about the same family that it's at war with itself.
But that is their reality right now.
That is a reality that they must contend with, that tomorrow we don't talk about. What are they going to put in place to ensure that 6 months down the line we don't talk about that? And I think even those who don't want the buffalo, can they just accept that for once he must be given a chance? They lose out on working together. 2024 they are going to be punished. And I know either faction needs the brand ANC.
They do, but it seems as though brand ANC needs brand Ramaphosa more, because they have apparently conducted some research, has the ANC, that has actually showed that brand Cyril Ramaphosa is actually stronger than brand ANC at the moment. Oscar Mabuyane affirmed this yesterday. So it would seem as though the ANC does need Ramaphosa going into 2024, perhaps even a little bit more than he would need them. But then again, he does need the party, because without the party, he's nothing. He can't go into an election without them and do well, I don't think. But then, of course, there's other research that has been conducted. I was reading in one of the newspapers last night that some of the surveys, and there's a lot being done at the moment, actually indicated that with Ramaphosa, the ANC is probably likely to hover maybe slightly less than 50% is what they will poll in the next general election in 2024. But without Ramaphosa, they could perhaps drop to as low as 30%.
I said that much, and Brent Sakina is saying that much, and I'm beginning to feel, as somebody whispered in my ears, that maybe say less about this because you may sound to be pro or campaigning for X or Z. And I'm saying, as a patriot, non-partisan, that they need each other, but clearly they need the buffalo more than the buffalo needs them. The buffalo said, I am willing, given what is going on around and about me, to step down. Who rallied around? Even those who don't want him. They were speaking in forked tongues. In his absence, I think they would get serious body blows come 2024. Because they are agreed that we are, limping towards a coalition government. That's what they are aware of come 2024. But I think they would be severely dented in his absence. And I'm happy for them that they got the results they did. And I'm happy, by the way, for myself and for the country, because I was fearful, right? I know that even if he lost, he would still be there until 2024. But they would make it more difficult to govern than it is the case right now. Sakina, so people follow power wherever it goes. Even those who were anti him, you'll see, they will begin to retreat.
So even a wounded buffalo at this stage seems to be better for the African National Congress. But a wounded buffalo is something that we shouldn't lose sight of in terms of the intra-party dynamics, because you have a situation whereby there has already been, some whispers here at Nasrec in the lead up to the nominations and, of course, subsequent elections of the top seven that there would perhaps at some point be a push to get Ramaphosa out. So one would imagine that would not happen before the 2024 election.
They need him, by the way. They really do. Maybe you and I also need him. Do we want to go back where we were yesterday? I know the Egyptians are on the highway. They did say, can we get a chance to go back home? Because the future looks so gloomy.
But Prof, when you say we need him,
yes,
you are suggesting that South Africa needs the ANC.
No. You see, that's the unfortunate part.
And this is what I want to canvass.
Yes. The South Africa just needs steady hands, so that things don't get as worse than what they are right now, right? And then let me just go straight to it. We wouldn't be talking about one man when we have got 60 million people if we had changed the Electoral Act. Because a son or a daughter of a sharecropper out there in Malamulele, in Nyanga or Langa, in Guguletu, would raise his or her hand and say, I am available to serve. Please change the Electoral Act so that we are not confined to one party and we are confined to one man. There are, even then, Sakina, having said that, even within the ANC, there are capable men and women. Some of them could do better than the buffalo. But they've been shunned, renounced, and denounced.
And this, of course, is what we'll talk more about. And we're coming to you from Nasrec, south of Johannesburg. This is where the ANC's 55th National Conference is taking place. We are on day 5. It is the final day. And hopefully by late afternoon or maybe even early afternoon, these proceedings will be brought to a halt. For now, though, it's back to studio.